I haven't forgotten that we want to do the chat GPT. What I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to pause here before we move on. I'd like to come back to the chat GPT demonstration at the end, but I'd like to throw the conversation open to the participants. Any comments, any questions?
Deepfake is one of the things that we have been seeing on the newspaper every day in India. We understand that somebody's face is attached to somebody's body,
Yeah,
and this is a common thing, especially if you're very aggressive on the social media. What
yeah,
happens is the photos are faked and videos are created out of your photos. Your face is faked, and it is being misused a lot.
that's
So
right. Sorry,
two
please
things
carry on.
two things from your side, if you can tell as to how we can protect ourselves, in particular the female in India, the women in the world, how can they protect themselves? And second thing is, why is it happening? Is it good or bad? What is your
Right.
thought?
Okay, let me take the second part first. Some of it is in humor. Yeah. Some of it is people think it's funny when it isn't. And there are some people that are just doing it to be bad people out of spite for whatever reason. It's a human thing. We're going to struggle to address it. Now, addressing it, which is the first part of your question, comes in a couple of parts. One is there's the education and awareness. So, just as adverts are run on TV to get you not to speed, ads are put on TV to get you not to drink drive, ads are put on TV and social media around taking drugs. Those kinds of societal campaigns will need to come into play around AI. The second one is the regulatory framework and the regulation that'll come with it. That always takes time and it's slower. And the third component is people doing proactive prosecutions. And again, they take time to catch up and work our way through. But if you're defamed, you can sue now. I know it's complicated, it's difficult. Not everybody has the money, but there will be more and more of these instances which will start to kick in. Now, the last component, which I want to get to further down the track, is how governments need to intervene in the markets and regulate market failures. That's what government does. Now, if you look at Facebook, Facebook is a classic whereby they have their algorithm with the AI running one way and it's causing a whole bunch of societal grief. Facebook changed the algorithm, their profits went down, and the amount of societal grief also went down. They then lobbied and got their political way and changed the algorithm. Their profits have gone back up, and teenage suicide has increased accordingly. And this is well documented in the media. Now, on the one hand, you can't blame Facebook for having a winning strategy and being able to get away with what they have because society lets them do it, the politicians let them do it, and the lawsuits against Facebook are not big enough and punitive enough to actually bring a change in the behavior of the social media companies. Sorry to say that. So in your question, it's going to be a mixture of education, it's going to be a mixture of societal pressure, it's going to be a mixture of regulatory, and it's lobbying politicians to do things in the vested interests of people. And all of those will take time. will be slow and are not easy things to do. But these are some of the challenges that as a society will work our way through. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Keith, thank you. One another
Good.
question.
Please.
Sometime back, you mentioned that there will be some lapse in jobs,
Yes.
but is it not going to be a dangerous situation for the whole world? I mean, if
Ah.
some lapses, it looks like it's
Yes.
going to be too many laps because we don't need any news readers anymore, right? It can
Okay.
be quick.
Yes. Now, anybody that says they know the answer to this isn't being honest. Yeah. What, I think I've got some slides, but which we can come back to. But let's cover it off now. We know that roles will change. If you look at the move from agriculture, where it was labor intensive, and they moved to high intensity automated agriculture, factory warehouse agriculture, those people moved into manufacturing. Now that manufacturing is automated with robots, they all moved into the service industry. And the big question is, all those people in the service industry, what happens next? Now, there will be new jobs created. There will be jobs that lapse, like people selling DVDs. I mean, there's some people there, but not a lot. Now, how society makes that transition, is the wealth going to fall into the hands of a few selected people and everybody else rushes into poverty? Is it going to be more managed? That's part of the challenges that we have. Now, I'll give you one more example. If you look at healthcare, one of the biggest costs in healthcare is changing bed sheets on sick people. The robot can change the bed sheet, but the human being will not stay put. They won't sit in the right place. They won't stay there for the time that's needed for the robot to work around it. So it's going to be a long time before some jobs actually get automated. And then the question also becomes, if you're a lawyer on $500 an hour, 25,000 rupees, I think, 50 rupee to the dollar times 500, yeah, 25,000. Are you going to take a wage at 10 rupee a day changing bed sheets? This is all part of the challenge that we have to work our way through. Hopefully, it'll be positive. We know that the economy tends to grow. We know that more wealth tends to come along with all of these transitions. It's how we make the transition, what happens to people, and and how that wealth gets distributed. And we've got a slide a little bit later in the deck around government and government services and some of the things they're going to need to consider. Did that answer your question?
Yes, Keith. Just to add a little more, and for the benefit of everybody, today there is something called as robotic surgeries. It's not just changing of the bedspreads; it's beyond that. The doctor's job is being done by robots. One of my friends
Mm.
is undergoing a kneecap surgery assisted by a robot.
Yeah.
Uh, so this is what is the current situation. And today, many of the codes, if I go to Chat GPT and say, hey, you give me a let's say Visual Basic code to do this things, I get a clear function which I can plug and play. I can just take it and copy paste it into my window, and things are done. This is where we stand at the moment, and it's going to grow a little more than what we are talking today.
Correct. It's going to grow. And that's an example of the autopilot model, whereby you're creating things for the first time, Once it's in ChatGPT, it can recycle it and use it, but you're still making sure that quality outcomes are being delivered. And that's an example of the change in skill sets that's coming down the pipeline. So let's move on. I want to talk about business opportunities. As with any market disruption, you've got the advantages of being the first movers in the market. But let's not get too excited, because if you think as a software company, you're going to write AI and take on Microsoft or Amazon, you're going to struggle unless you come up with something that is totally innovative or you do the specialization. So Microsoft is unlikely to spend time creating specialist AI-driven software for specialist aspects within manufacturing assembly lines. The existing companies that provide the manufacturing assembly software, they will include the AI. But again, there's the first mover's advantage. In any market disruption, incumbents, if they respond fast enough, get bigger and get ahead. And there's going to be a lot of work around mergers and acquisitions. If you've already looked at some of the AI, there's a lot of buyouts and mergers, acquisitions going on. There will be new businesses. Businesses will change their models, and some businesses will lapse. I don't know which ones. There are some people making predictions, but let's take that with a pinch of salt. And then there's all the emerging areas like sector-specific AI, AI embedded in specific solutions. Now, assurance services. So assuring that the outcome from ChatGPT is of quality and it's used across the organization in a professional way, there's work to be had there. I've just noticed a comment in the chat, which I'll come to in a minute. There's all the data services, and there's business supporting operations and services around AI. Now, there's a comment in the chat, but you still need humans to feed the basic information in. Absolutely. This is where we've talked about the autopilot model, where you create for the first time, you assure the outcomes, you intervene when things go wrong, and you move into complex stakeholder management, and that takes up more and more of your time. So this is the 10,000 foot on some of the areas of business opportunities. Now, we've sort of covered off this before. There's a whole series of services in education coming, whether it's training in AI software, whether it's industry advisory, whether it's creating standards for industry around AI within a particular market sector, like transport and logistics. And there's a big one around accreditation and certification. There's big educational opportunities coming down the pipeline. We can talk about some more of them in more detail offline. There's going to be a big area is the provision of data in terms of quality, access, permissions, but even getting the data and getting it integrated to provide solutions for the AI to use. Now, increasingly, we will be using derived products. So we will combine weather data with agriculture growth data, with satellite tracking of harvesters so that we can meet a particular contractual obligation for the shipping of corn, let's say. We will be using different data from different sources, blending it together with and using these derived products. And we can talk about some of the challenge with that one a little bit more. Now, assurance, audit, and risk management are obviously going to be integral to what we do. So if you're a large government agency and you start to have people using ChatGPT to create letters, then we need the audit function to make sure that it's working. We need the assurance to make sure that the people are using it in the right way, they're skilled how to do it, and those sorts of things. And now on the employment side, there will be changes in the recruiting process and the hiring process. We're going to be changing our performance metrics. When we hire people, not only will they need to be able to use AI in their job, but we still need to make sure they can do their job without AI. So there's no point in hiring somebody who's just going to copy and paste code into ChatGPT and dispense it as their work, because how are they going to get any quality control over it? So just as we will hire now a software developer and test them to write some code, we will test them with ChatGPT, or with AI and without AI. And these are some of the business integration issues that businesses at different levels will need to be working through. Now, don't worry about the complexity of this diagram. There's a core platform of mobile computing, cloud computing, Internet of Things, and all that stuff off which we operate. There's all the things that we use like Gmail, which is software as a service. Those of us that are familiar with some of the cloud providers, we don't go and buy servers at the shop anymore. We just go to Amazon or Microsoft and get the IT guys to source virtual servers from there and databases. Now, there's a whole bunch of new services that are creating, like project management as a service, business analysis as a service, testing as a service. These will be services provided out of the cloud, highly automated, using AI. How we do it, how we transition is another question. Now, if you're a 20-year-old starting off your career in tax, there's three broad career paths for you. One is doing high-end specialist tax as a manual process, and that's going to stay there for a while. The bulk of tax processing and the routine tax processing is going to get increasingly automated. All the purchases that you make and you track in your accounting software will just get processed through, reconciled against your bank account, and a tax thing produced, which will then be automatically messaged to the tax office. That's coming. Now, once that's taken up, that changes the business models of accountants and all of those sort of things. But the message is you don't need many people to do it. Now, the third major career area is designing, operating, and managing these automated services and getting large companies to use them and getting other companies to use them. So that's just one example of cloud-based services that are emerging. And again, we've talked about the machine to machine and all of those bits. We will share the slides after the session, and you can go through this in a little bit of detail. I want to skip through the next two slides at a bit of pace. We've talked about tax as a service, and there's a couple of other examples, but one of the ones I want to pick is government policy. There's going to be a need to prioritize skilling and training. Now, who pays for it? Who does it? Whether it's done by private businesses, that's all still to be worked through, but it's one of the challenges. Now, universities will need to change their focus, what they teach, and how they teach. And there's going to be a big area of accreditation and certification, as we've mentioned before. The accreditation and certification will be needed to grow the skill base, make the skill base easier to transfer across employers and aspects like that. And things like different bureau models, we can have a wider conversation there. But again, we'll share the slides and you can go through it. And I'm just going to pick financial crime as one example. Australian banks pay outsource operations in India to screen financial transactions. And let's just pick Cuba. In Australia, we can only send certain payments to certain entities within Cuba. So what happens is all the transactions get screened for Cuba. Then we say, right, that's Cuba Street in Auckland. It's not Cuba, the country, with sanctions. So these ones pass that level of screening. And it's a manual process that's becoming more mature, increasingly using AI. One of the big opportunities for Indian companies is to create the next generation of software around AI for things like sanctions screening, and then getting that embedded in with their clients and realizing the services and revenue opportunities. And what you'll see from this example is that there's 4 or 5, and you can see how it'll become more and more sophisticated, like facial recognition with fraud. And if you look at China, they're already trying to pioneer that. And some of the Indian companies are sort of getting a little bit left behind. I won't comment on the Australian ones.